My name is Audrey. I am 36 years old, and I have a life that many people would envy. A warm home, a beautiful garden, a kind husband named Peter, and a 9-year-old son called Chester. Peter and I had been married for 12 years. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But life has a way of hiding its cracks. 6 months ago, we hired a man named Ronald. He cleaned the house, cared for the garden, and helped with Chester. He was quiet and always smiling. At first, I barely noticed him. He was simply part of the household. But then one evening, Peter was working late. Chester was asleep. I found Ronald sitting in the kitchen, reading a book. I sat with him. We talked. He told me about his life, how he had come from another city, how he had no family here. Something about his honesty moved me. We talked for hours that night. After that, something slowly began to shift inside me. A few weeks later, Peter left for a 3-day business trip. It was just me, Chester, and Ronald. On the first night, the 3 of us had dinner together. After Chester went to bed, Ronald and I sat talking again. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. And then, without fully understanding why, I kissed him. It was a small kiss, but it felt enormous. I pulled away immediately and told him it was a mistake. He said nothing. He just looked at me. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Peter, about our marriage, about everything I was putting at risk. I promised myself it would never happen again. But a few days later, while Peter was still away, it happened again. This time it was more than a small kiss. This time I did not stop it, and when it was over, I sat alone in the quiet house, feeling like a stranger to myself. Peter came home from his trip, and life continued as normal on the surface. We cooked dinner together, watched TV, but inside me, everything had changed. I was carrying a secret that grew heavier with every passing day. Ronald still worked for us. He was polite to Peter, wonderful with Chester. But when Peter was not around, Ronald and I would exchange glances that said everything we never spoke out loud. I felt guilty constantly. When I kissed my husband goodnight, I thought about what I had done. When I watched Chester laugh and play, I thought about the lie I was living. Some nights I lay awake beside Peter while he slept, looking at his face, thinking about how much he trusted me. Then one afternoon, I found messages on Peter's phone. They were from a woman. My heart dropped. Peter had been secretly meeting someone. At first, I felt a sharp, burning anger. How could he do this to me? But then the anger faded, and what replaced it was something much harder to bear, the realization that I was no better than him. We were both living a lie. We were both hiding the same kind of secret. The only difference was that he did not know mine yet. I spent days thinking about what to do. Should I confront him? Stay silent? Pretend nothing was wrong? But pretending was exactly what had brought us here. One night, after Chester had gone to sleep and Ronald had left for the evening, I sat down across from Peter at the kitchen table. My heart was pounding. "Peter, I need to tell you something," I said. He looked at me, confused. "What is it?" "I've been seeing someone," I said, and I could not bring myself to look at his eyes. The silence that followed felt endless. Then I told him everything. Ronald, the kiss, the nights when he was away. When I finished speaking, I braced myself for his anger, for shouting, for tears. But instead, after a long pause, Peter spoke quietly. "I've been seeing someone, too," he said. Now it was my turn to sit in silence. He told me her name was Imogen. She worked at his office. It had started a few months ago and had already ended before that night. He said he was sorry. I said I was sorry. We sat across from each other, two people who had both made the same mistake, finally telling each other the truth. It was not easy after that. We decided to let Ronald go. Chester asked where he had gone, and I told him Ronald had found another job. Watching my son accept that answer was one of the hardest moments of all this. Knowing how much of the truth I still had to protect him from, Peter and I began marriage counseling. Week after week, we sat in a small office and answered questions. The counselor asked me why I had kissed Ronald. At first, I did not know what to say. But slowly, the honest answer surfaced. I had felt alone. Peter was always working, always busy, and somewhere along the way I had begun to feel invisible in my own marriage. Ronald had simply paid attention to me, and that attention had felt like water to someone who had been thirsty for a long time. When I said this out loud, Peter looked hurt, but he needed to hear it. We both did. When he was on his phone, I felt a small knot in my stomach. The counselor reminded us that trust is rebuilt slowly, through small actions repeated over time, not through a single conversation or apology. So that is what we did. Peter started coming home earlier. We had dinner together as a family more often. I stopped carrying secrets and started choosing honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. Months passed, then a full year. Peter planned a weekend trip for just the two of us. Chester stayed with my sister, and we drove to a small beach town and checked into a quiet hotel. It was the first time in a long time that we were truly alone together. With no distractions, no routines, no past version of ourselves, pretending everything was fine. We walked along the water. We talked about things we had not talked about in years, and we laughed in a way that felt real and easy. On the last night of the trip, Peter reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a new wedding ring, simple and beautiful. He looked at me with steady eyes. "I want us to start fresh," he said. "A new ring for a new beginning." Tears ran down my face before I could stop them. I slipped the ring onto my finger and held his hand, and did not say anything for a moment, because some things are too full for words. I am not proud of what I did. Peter is not proud of what he did. But we chose to face our mistakes instead of running from them. And that choice made all the difference. Our marriage is not perfect. No marriage is. But it is honest now, and it is ours. And every day we choose each other again. That, I have learned, is what love really looks like. Not the feeling that arrives on its own, but the decision you make, again and again, to stay.